Hi, my name is Shwa and I am the founder and host of Light Up with Shwa. It's a weekly podcast and I hope you are watching and listening to it. It's a weekly podcast, so it's not too much. I have a very special guest today. You might have heard him before on my podcast in the very beginning of the podcast that I had, the episodes. I have him here. It's my privilege to introduce you to Joe Kelley. Dr. Joe Kelley. He doesn't like me to call him doctor, so I'm going to try to call him Joe. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Shwa. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good.
Good. Thank you for coming. Give me your full name and what do you do?
Joseph Kelley, and I'm a professor of Religious and Theological Studies at Merrimack College in North Andover, Mass. And I also direct our Interfaith Center, the Center for the Study of Jewish, Christian, Muslim Relations.
Thank you. So what else do you do there? And how long have you been there?
Oh, I'm a lifer.
Oh, okay.
I've been at Merrimack I'm completing my 44th year.
Wow, they really like you.
Well,
or you really
or
like
they can't
them.
get rid of me. Yeah, I've had a number of positions there over the years in administration and teaching. But I'd say the heart of my work is teaching. Teaching in the field of religion and religious studies.
Okay. Is this tie related to the college?
Actually, this tie is related to Oxford University, where I took a course many years ago.
Okay.
And for important events like this, I bring it out.
Very nice. Thank you. That was wonderful. Okay, so as a teacher, so what level of, is it undergraduate that you teach or graduate level? Does it make a difference?
I've taught both. No, it makes a difference. I've taught undergraduates mostly, so the typical 18 to 22, 23-year-old college student. I've taught graduate studies, older people who are studying for different reasons.
Okay.
And also I've taught in our evening school or continuing education degree completion programs for people who are out working, raising a family, and for one reason or another never finished their bachelor's. They're the most interesting people to teach because they're highly motivated and bring experience to the classroom.
But you finished your education on time. You're not one of the adults who finished it later.
I don't have the typical profile for somebody who's a professor. I finished undergraduate, then I went to graduate school, then I taught for a while, and then I did a number of things. I traveled in Europe.
How long before you got your doctorate?
Well, I finished my master's in 1974.
Oh, that's recent.
That was back in the age of the dinosaurs.
No, it's recent.
And then I taught and did a number of things, and I didn't finish my doctorate, my first doctorate in 1981, and then I went back part-time and finished another doctorate in 96.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you have 2 doctorates.
Yes, so I was, and all of that time I was doing some teaching and working.
If you have extra ones?
Sure,
It's easy. That's nice. So in which fields?
My field is sort of a combination of religion and psychology.
Okay.
So my first degree was in psychology with a religious perspective. Pastoral counseling might be called, or pastoral psychotherapy.
Yeah.
And my second degree was in the psychology of religion.
Okay.
So I've always in my life, I've been interested in religious questions, but also psychological questions, and how the two can often intersect, and how sometimes people have what they think are religious problems, but they're really psychological issues, and sometimes vice versa.
That's
people frame their issues in terms of psychological categories, but they're actually asking deeper spiritual questions.
This is so interesting. I wish I knew this a little before. Can you give an example before we get into the career advice from you? Like, how did you become this professor with 2 doctorates and all? It's a lot to do, and your travels. So, can you give any example that briefly that can differentiate between the psychological, that somebody thought this is a psychological problem, but it was religious, or vice versa, or however you are describing it?
One example, it would be the issue of control. for example. A person might come to a therapist with issues of control. How they want to have too much control in their life. They don't know how to let go of control. If they don't have control of the situation, they get anxious, perhaps even depressed. Well, sometimes they can work toward satisfying their need for control by using religion. And they may get into a leadership position in a particular religious tradition where they perceive themselves as controlling people's lives. That's one example. It's a bit of
interesting. I'm thinking
a strong example.
It can maybe creep into. It's not our topic or anything, but I do want to mention, and maybe we can bring this topic later in my podcast, and maybe I can have you as a panelist about when you are talking about control and psychology and religion, and I see the overlap in, I learned and I heard some experts talking about in people who take the choice or option or don't know better how to control people through terrorism. They, I think, use something of that kind, right?
Yes.
Control and religion. And
if you look at radical terrorist
yes.
movements in any religion,
yeah.
be it Islam, Judaism, Christianity, Buddhism now,
yes.
and very often what there are psychological issues, there are sociological issues, there are economic issues, but those all get subsumed or hidden under religious ideology, when very often they have nothing at all to do with religion. To use an example, the conflict in Ireland, where my ancestors came from, between Catholics and Protestants, it's always framed between two different religious groups. But if you know the history of that long conflict, basically it's economic. Certainly there are religious dimensions to it, but where you have a good thriving economy and people have opportunity and people can get employed and they can live lives that where their families are safe and secure, you have almost never have religious conflicts or issues. So that subject has interested me over the years, and I found myself studying psychology for a while, then going back to religion, then going back to psychology. So that's how I ended up.
Oh wow, that's interesting. So I guess I should have a few episodes about this topic only with you, because this is very important and interesting. So anyways, not for today. Today I'm going to go into how can you give a career advice from your experience, and how have you reached here, and what if somebody's in the direction that they think that they want to teach, what do they need to do in order to get there?
I think to teach, you need to make a few decisions, and these decisions aren't made theoretically or outside of experience.
Okay.
They're made in the midst of trying different things. Do you want to teach primary school? Do you want to teach secondary school?
Or the college
or
students.
at the university level? What kind of university do you want to teach in? A research university where you have less contact with students, or a teaching college? And again, you may have a vision when you're younger of what you want to do, but as we know, when you actually start moving on your journey to that vision, lots of other things happen. But I think the most important thing is to have a passion, to fall in love with a profession, to know that there will be a lot of challenges along the way, but if this is what you really want to do, you're willing to make the sacrifices. I also think that teachers, whether they teach first grade, like my daughter, or they teach undergraduates or graduate students, teaching is a part of your identity. It goes deeper. It's not just a job. It is that, of course. But for really good teachers, it's a profession. It's something they profess. It comes out of the deeper parts of who they are as persons. You take physicians, for example. I had a friend whose son was injured when he was very young, 5 years old. and he was hospitalized for many months, off and on, for a period of about 2 years. Today, he's a leading physician. And obviously, his passion for that profession came from his very young, his experience as a young lad, struggling with pain, with scarring of his body and so forth. But today he works for the National Institute for Health. And I think teachers they're born and they're nurtured by other teachers. Very often, teachers, by their care for students, inspire young people to imitate them. And I would say I can point to 2 or 3 teachers in my past who
that have influenced you or have a...
And who even I can hear myself teaching as they taught me.
Really?
There's a saying in schools of education, you don't teach as you were taught to teach. You teach as you were taught.
Wow.
So that a person's teaching style very often borrows from the best teachers that they had along the way. But also from their passion for teaching. And you might have a passion for teaching mathematics.
Yeah.
Some of my colleagues at Merrimack do. You might have a passion for teaching a language and the culture around that language, or business, or health sciences, or and so on. For me, the passion is this abiding question of what is the relationship between who we are as human beings, our psychology, if you will, and the questions that ask about the spiritual or the transcendent. What is the nature of that which is beyond human nature? So that's, even after 40 some years, that question is still a burning one for me.
Wow.
And if I can help young people get the categories and the language so that they can frame the questions for themselves, that's satisfying for me.
So that, okay, wonderful, wonderful. So, wow, that was rich. So it means people should come to you and ask for advice and take the professional advice from you, because maybe that's one way you can start something to, or maybe you already most probably do with your students, right? You advise them, and do you career advice for their careers, or how we say it?
Informally, I would say. We have a career center that helps them with more focused questions. And very often what a student may come to, like my daughter, many years ago, who came and she said, "Dad, my passion is art history. I want to study art history." I thought, okay. So she did. She has a bachelor's degree in art history. But when she graduated, there were no jobs in art history, or very low paying jobs. It takes a while to perhaps to go on for graduate work, a master's or a doctorate. And even then it's a very specific field. So you've got to strike this balance between your passion and what's available in the marketplace. So as a professor, I told my daughter, yes, follow your passion. As a father, I said, we want you to make some money for yourself.
Sustain yourself.
So I think in choosing a profession and choosing a career, you need to balance your own passion, your own interest, what makes it worthwhile to get up in the morning to do, with the realities of the marketplace. And that's not always so easy.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and it took me a while to find that. I mean, for many years I taught as an adjunct professor, where you get just so much money for teaching a course and no health care and so forth. So it can be difficult.
But it takes time and figuring out the marketplace. I guess that's very important.
Right. And to study the marketplace carefully, look at trends. Go to the career center at your college or university and find out what careers are projected 5 years from now to be very prosperous and to have a lot of opportunity, or 10 years from now. Career analysts and advisors tell us that the students I'm teaching now will go through 5 to 7 different careers, not different jobs, but different careers.
To reach the
Yeah.
final.
And education today needs to prepare students to be flexible. They need
Yeah.
to learn. They should have a toolbox of many skills that they can bring.
Nowadays, that's necessary.
So you need to be faithful to yourself. You need to listen to yourself and your passion. You also need to be very wise and informed about the marketplace.
Wonderful.
So in working with students, I try to help them strike that balance.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you for that. I hope people watching and listening will follow that. All right, let's come to a few of the questions about parenting. I know that you are a parent. You have mentioned your daughter, and you have a
Also a son. Yeah.
Okay. And so, as a parent, what have you gained, or would you say as a parent you gained something, or did you lose some, or it was all gain? Any benefits of being a parent?
Oh, I can't imagine my life without my children.
Okay.
Yeah, as you know, as a parent yourself, you would do anything for them. You sacrifice your life for them. You postpone things. You put money aside for them. But I don't regret a moment of that. And even career. I mean, my wife, she wanted to stay home with our children. I honored her desire to do that, and that meant we had less money. I had to teach more extra courses, but I do not regret that at all.
Yeah.
And
So that was a mutual decision?
yes,
Okay.
yes. And our daughter now has a 16-month-old girl and is expecting another, and she's done the same thing. She's a first grade teacher, and it's a struggle for them. We try to help now as best we can, but I think as a parent, you learn so much from your children.
You do.
As you watch them grow, you watch them struggle with things that you
Depends
struggle
on the
with.
parents, I guess, if you are learning from the children. If you're all the time telling them what to do, I don't think you're learning.
That's a very good point. No,
Right?
I think you need to provide a safe, secure, orderly home, and sometimes that means disciplining.
Okay.
But I think you need to approach your children with a kind of humility. You
That's
can
a point.
you
That's
can
a
learn
point.
from them.
Yeah.
You know, the Quran advises people to be humble. That's a great virtue in the Islamic tradition, and I think that's true even in front of our children. We can learn, we can listen. There is nothing more healing or more empowering for a child than to know that she or he is actually being listened to.
Yes.
You know, turn off the TV.
Yes.
Put down the newspaper or the book or your phone, and devote your attention to listening very carefully to what your child is trying to say and helping them to say it. But through all of those, I think back as I watch my granddaughter grow now, I think back to when my daughter was her age. And to see her now as a mother, it's
That's
a
amazing,
beautiful
huh?
life.
Is it
enriching.
nice?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Do you think every person can be a parent? In your experience, especially, you have so many people that you meet and students, and we still have to ask about your travels. So,
I know a lot of people who on their own decided they did not want to be a parent. They did not want to have
so
children.
they knew that they didn't.
They, for a variety of reasons, perhaps they felt they
So
didn't
do
have
you-
the skills.
So, in your experience, like you think that, I'm asking, I know it's not like you can say yes or no, but from your experience, I'm talking now, you have older children, you teach, college students and all. Are there some characteristics that some people
Yes, I would
possess
say
and-
in psychology,
Yeah.
there's a category of disorders that we call personality disorders. High levels of narcissism, for example, where an individual is not capable of empathy, of asking the question, how does that other person
Yeah.
feel? If you can't exercise empathy on behalf of your children and try to understand how they're feeling after they've been bullied at school or after they've not done well in a test or didn't win the hockey game, a person who is incapable of empathy, I would worry about them parenting.
Right.
Because I have seen children of such parents suffer throughout their life and struggle. So I don't, when you think we have to get a license to drive a car, we have to get a license to practice medicine,
Exactly.
but there is no license to get to be a parent.
Yep.
And I'm not suggesting we do that,
But there should be some
but as a society,
some prerequisite courses or something to
Yeah.
do that.
or at least as a society, we need to devote more of our resources to helping
Yes.
parents be good parents. Frankly, I think European countries do that a bit more successfully than the United States.
What about Asian countries? Have you?
I'm not that familiar with Asian countries. I do know, though, generally, Asian countries focus much more on the family and the community, whereas in Western countries, we focus more on the individual.
Right.
Now, that's a spectrum.
Yeah.
But when I bring my American students to Italy, Italy is a Western country, but it's a different country, and they talk with young Italian students, their own age, university students. The American students come away surprised at how often when an Italian student is asked a question, they always answer it in the context of what their family would say.
I think Italians are very family oriented.
Yeah, it's a family-oriented culture.
As much as I know.
And it's true of some other European countries. And the further east you go, the stronger that gets.
Yep.
The notion of the family is much stronger.
Yeah.
Whereas in the United States and other Western countries, there's an emphasis is on the individual and the freedoms of the individual. That's good. I don't want to give that up.
Right.
But we also need to care about the community. I think
Right.
we need to care more about the family and support parents who
Don't
are
you think it is
struggling.
coming to that direction again? Like we are going around and people have started valuing family
I
more?
think so. I think millennials and post-millennials, the students I'm working with now, they will tell me, I'm not going to dedicate my life and sacrifice my freedom to a company, to my job. I want more time with my family. So yes, I would say you're right.
Yeah, a little bit. I have noticed somehow.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's good to have a balance, I guess.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Good. Thank you for that. Let's get to, with the time that we have, I think I would like to go to some thought-provoking questions that I had for you. Well, I'm going to ask this again. What do you like about yourself?
What do I like about
Yes.
myself? Well, as I get older, and I'm conscious of growing older, now I'm well past the midpoint of life. There's more behind me than ahead of me. But I would have to say, other than a few creaky joints here and there, I'm enjoying
That's good.
what age brings. I've been very blessed with, I had wonderful parents and a wonderful wife and children. And I would say, I don't know if I can take credit for this, but what I like about myself is that I'm able to be grateful. And I think that's a very important virtue. I have it because I've been loved into it by so many people. But what I like about myself and my life at this point is the gratitude I feel day in and day out for my wife, my children, my grandchild, another one on the way, for the rich blessings of a career that I have enjoyed immensely. It hasn't all been easy, but I would say that's one thing I enjoy. And I think, this may sound strange, but after 40 plus years of teaching, I think I'm finally beginning to understand what teaching is.
Wow.
And so what I enjoy about this stage of my life is a deeper understanding of things, born of experience.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Are you going to ask what I don't like about myself?
No, I'm not going to ask today. I'll leave that for some other time. Okay. Are you afraid of anything? With all what you positively mentioned about?
I would say I'm afraid of serious illness.
Okay, for yourself.
For myself, you know.
Anything about, that's for, of course, that makes sense. And anything beyond yourself that you're afraid of? I'm concerned about the effects of a changing environment. And it's what that means for my son and daughter and their spouses future.
And for their children. I worry about that. And one can argue about the causes of global warming. I know it's very complex. However, it is a reality, whatever the reasons. And I attended a lecture recently by a professor from UMass Amherst, who's an expert on the melting glaciers of Antarctica. I was depressed for the next few days. So I fear that. What does that mean? Not only for the ones I love, what does that mean for the millions of people, billions of people who live in low-lying areas around the world?
And who will be after us, and what will happen to everything else?
So those are some things I worry about.
So you are, I know, God conscious. So do you leave some on God about that?
Well, St. Augustine of Hippo, who's the Christian thinker I do most of my research on, said you should pray as if everything depended on God and act as if everything depended on you.
That's a good advice.
So yes, as a Christian, I realize that if God is God, none of this is beyond God's love and care and compassion. But that doesn't relieve me of my responsibility to advocate for causes that I think are important.
Definitely. That's important. Your responsibility is there. Rest is on God.
Right. You can't get back to what we started with. You can't control everything.
Yeah, that's true.
And sometimes I like to control everything.
Yes. So. Now, is that religious or psychological?
Both.
Okay. What gives you peace or inner calm?
Well, next week we start Ramadan, next Wednesday. And my Muslim friends, during Ramadan, I will choose several days to fast in solidarity with my Muslim brothers and sisters and pray. That brings me peace. When I get very busy and I'm rushing to grade papers, to meet with people, to go to meetings, to finish a book that I'm writing and so forth, and the whole day has gone by and I haven't prayed, that does not bring peace. So I think integrating consciousness of the divine, integrating prayer into life, it brings me an inner peace and an outer peace. My blood pressure goes down.
Excellent.
So I try to take Ramadan, I try to take my Christian time of Lent and Advent, and also Yom Kippur, the Jewish Day of Atonement.
You're such an interfaith guy, and I'm not asking you any interfaith questions, and you just have it.
Because I've learned from people from many different religions.
That's nice.
So that brings me peace when I stop, I slow down, stop eating, stop consuming. Not just food, but stop consuming TV or social media.
Exactly.
Turn all that off.
Take a break from everything.
It's good. It can be very enriching, but it also can be very draining. And just dwell in the present moment, because that's where we find God.
That's true. That's true.
And I think I met this morning with someone who is a career advisor. He's doing some research. I was helping him with that. And we were talking about how often questions of career intersect with questions of yourself and also with spiritual questions. They're all integrated, and we all sort them out in different ways. But I think it's important to be open to those three levels: your career, the world of work, who you are as a person,
And
psychologically perhaps, and who you are as a person spiritually. And if you can get those three lined up.
wonderful. And how long does that take?
I'm just beginning to get it accomplished now.
Well, this was our first episode with Dr. Kelley, I think, and I hope to see you on the next episode.
It would be a pleasure.
Thank you.